Okay, we've got one more poll to tell you about today. We finally have numbers in the special election race to replace former Congressman Anthony Weiner. Many felt this race was not going to be very close, in part because Democrats hold a 130,000-person enrollment edge in the Queens and Brooklyn district. That is considerable. But according to a new Siena poll out today, the race is actually almost neck and neck, statistically speaking anyway. Joining me now to talk more about this poll is Siena pollster and frequent insider on Capitol Tonight, Steve Greenberg. Steve?
Great to be with you, Liz.
I feel like I just saw you.
It was just a couple days ago.
We were talking about Hugh Carey.
Yes, indeed.
And now we are talking about something that Hugh Carey probably would have found very interesting, being a Brooklyn boy.
No question about it.
Okay, so we thought that this was going to be a no-brainer for the Democrats, although why anybody would want to win this race is sort of beyond me, but we'll get to that. In fact, it's actually 6 points with 5 weeks to go between the Republican Bob Turner and David Weprin. Why?
Why? That's a great question. Look, this is this is going to be tough for upstate viewers, per se, to understand, but this is a more conservative Democratic district in New York.
Because of all the Jews there, the Orthodox Jews.
Well, no, because David Weprin's doing very well with Jewish voters. He's up by 20 points with Jewish voters.
And he is an Orthodox, not Orthodox, a very observant Jew himself.
Right, and he's only up by 6 points because despite the fact that this district has a 3-to-1 Democratic to Republican enrollment advantage for the Democrats, it's a district that Bob Turner ran into less than a year ago against Anthony Weiner. He lost bad, 61 to 39%. But again, bad is a relative term. That's one of the closer elections in a congressional race in New York City. This is a district that at the moment doesn't like Barack Obama. They also don't like their incumbent mayor, Mike Bloomberg, very much. But they love Andrew Cuomo. They love Chuck Schumer, who represented part of this district 100 years ago, back when he was in the House of Representatives.
This is his seat before it changed.
Right, it changed dramatically, because when he held the seat, it was all in Brooklyn. Now, only about a third of the district's in Brooklyn, about 2/3 of it is in Queens.
Well, but theoretically, that was supposed to be good for David Weprin, because the Weprins are an institutional name. And Saul Weprin was the Speaker of the Assembly.
I know
David Weprin, of course you do, city council member, until he switched seats, essentially, with his brother Mark, who has his father's old seat. This is getting this is the dynastic quality of New York politics.
Absolutely.
You can see it in this race, which is what makes it, in part, so fascinating. Also, you've got Schumer is backing Weprin. You've got Andrew Cuomo backing Weprin. And remember, Cuomo's
not necessarily
from Queens.
publicly yet.
Well, he said he'll do everything he can to be helpful. In Cuomo language, that's like saying, I support the guy.
Well, we have 3 people who are very popular in this district, Siena found in this poll. Andrew Cuomo, Chuck Schumer, Ed Koch, all Democrats. However, Ed Koch, the former mayor of New York City, a Democrat, has endorsed Robert Turner, the Republican. A little bit of a convoluted reason. Mayor Koch says that he wants voters to vote for Bob Turner to send a message to President Obama that he's not being strong on Israel.
Right.
Meanwhile, Ed Koch, very popular in the district, as popular as Andrew Cuomo, I might add, has endorsed Turner, but it hasn't really moved Jewish voters. Jewish voters are strongly with Weprin. Catholic voters, and there are more of them in this district than there are Jewish voters, are with Turner. David Weprin's doing very well in the Queens portion of the district, although one would argue not as well as he should be doing, given the enrollment, but he's up by 10 points in Queens. He's trailing by 6 points in the Brooklyn section of the district.
Let's talk about 2 things, just to broaden it out for upstate viewers. You're probably saying, like, I don't care, it's Anthony Weiner's seat. Well, Anthony Weiner obviously is a national figure because of his mishigas, right, for lack of a better word. And so we're still paying attention. But however, there are implications here, just like there were implications in the 26th Congressional District special election that actually was a Republican-held seat. It's actually flipped.
It's very analogous. Right. I mean, it was a district that at the beginning of that campaign, nobody thought the Democrat had a chance. This was a safe Republican seat. And then we find that the Democrat wins. And in the first Siena poll, we said this is a real race. Here we have the flip, a very Democratic district. Nobody thought the Republican had a chance here. First Siena poll comes out and says, we have a real race here.
Okay, so 26 turned on Medicare, mostly. And the Paul Ryan plan, I know viewers are going, oh yeah, I think I remember that, because we did quite a lot on that. Obviously, Buffalo's big, Rochester, big area for us. This race, could this race turn on the debt ceiling? And if in fact that is the case, then David Weprin's got a problem, because Bob Turner said, I would have voted yes, I would have held my nose and voted yes, I thought that plan stunk, but we had to save the country, etc. Now we find Standard & Poor's doesn't agree, whatever. David Weprin sort of said, I think maybe I would have voted no, but I'm not sure. The funny thing is, these voters say, we prefer somebody who voted yes, but also we wanted Medicare protected and we wanted Social Security protected, which is exactly why David Weprin said he would have voted no had he voted no.
Look, voters don't have to be consistent. There's no state or federal law that requires voters to be consistent in their views. And what we see here is the voters want their cake and eat it too, and that's not surprising. We see that everywhere. Voters said that they overwhelmingly, 2-to-1, they said they would have wanted their representative to vote for the debt ceiling increase. Every Democrat but one in Congress from New York City voted against it. Greg Meeks being the only congressman from Queens,
not this part of Queens,
right,
though,
but voted for it. But these voters also say they don't want to see cuts in entitlements like Social Security and Medicare. They also say they'd be great with a tax, an increasing of the tax on the wealthy, those making more than $250,000 a year,
which is something
to help close the
Republicans
deficit.
Cannot stomach, because Boehner would have a nervous breakdown with that.
Absolutely, although, you know, Republicans oppose it mildly in this district. 50 to 43 Republicans
but Brooklyn
oppose that.
And Queens Republicans are not Republicans in any other part of the country.
But at the same time, they take those views. By a bare majority, the voters in this district would like to see last year's federal health care legislation, reform legislation, the so-called Obamacare, repealed.
Right. So
the president is not doing well in this district. This is a district, as we said, that's 3-to-1 Democrat, yet Barack Obama's numbers here, 45% favorable, 52% unfavorable. So this is a district, and I'll give you another one. We asked, you know, the standard question, is the state headed on the right track or in the wrong direction? In this case, since it's a congressional election, we asked that, but we also asked, is the United States on the right track or headed in the wrong direction? 15% of voters said it's on the right track. 78%, more than 3/4 of voters said the country's on the wrong direction. So voters here are angry. But what I would say makes this different, this race very different than the Western New York seat from a couple months ago. There, all of the media focus was on that race. You couldn't watch TV, you couldn't listen to the radio for 30 seconds without hearing a commercial, seeing a commercial.
In the year,
it was all over the Buffalo News, the Rochester Democrat and Chronicle. I mean, this race was widely covered. Here in New York City, this is just one of many congressional seats. The New York Times, the Daily News, the New York Post, the Wall Street Journal, they're not covering it on a regular basis.
Comes 2 days after the 10th anniversary of September 11th, which is going to be a massive media experience.
Absolutely. But beyond that, in terms of the campaign, you're not going to see the kind of commercials that you saw in Western New York. This is the most expensive media market in the country. You're aiming at one congressional district. The New York media market covers 30 congressional districts. So my point in all of this is that this is a very different race. It's going to come to turnout, pure and simple.
Right.
Even though it's on primary day, there's no real primaries going on in the city of New York that day. There's some special elections for the assembly in parts of the district, but there's no real reason for voters to come out. So it's going to be a low turnout, maybe somewhere around 15 to 20%, if that.
Yeah.
So therefore, which campaign does a better job of organizing, identifying their voters, and getting them to the poll? And let me quickly make two other points. One is unions matter in a small turnout election. And what we find in this Siena poll is that in non-union households, Turner and Weprin are dead even. In union households, Weprin has a nearly 20-point lead. So that's an advantage for David Weprin. One thing that works against David Weprin, as you know, Liz, in special elections, who are the best voters? Older voters. They tend to vote in every election. Among voters 55 and under right now, dead even. Among voters among voters under 55, Weprin has a 15-point lead. Among voters 55 and older, dead even.
Okay.
That does not bode well for David Weprin.
Okay, so just in closing, though, and we have to hit this point, this district is widely believed to be targeted for eradication in redistricting.
Absolutely.
Just so people know, but then again, so is 26, and we just don't know yet what's going to happen. But whoever wins this thing may barely actually get to hold it. We
For
are
a year
not
and a
sure.
half,
Right.
if that.
It is really a fascinating race. 5 more weeks to go. Anything could happen. In the meantime, I want to thank you very much. You're going to be back in the field on this.
We're
right?
going to do one more the week before Election Day. Normally, we like to try and do it the Sunday before Election Day. That's the 10th anniversary of 9/11. We're not going to do it then.
No.
So we'll be out sometime the week before that.
Okay, so Steve Greenberg, we will touch base with you again.
Yep.